I'm Alan Palmer, taxidermist from Simpsonville, South Carolina, and this will be our taxidermy instructional tape for big game head mounts. And this can virtually be for anything from a white-tailed deer on up, elk, whatever. And this will work for you on most anything of that nature. Today we'll be doing, of course, a white-tailed deer, and this is a typical mount here. I would recommend when you first receive your tape, you should go ahead and view your tape at least twice, and while you're watching the tape, go ahead and send off for the taxidermy catalogs. I will enclose names and addresses of various taxidermy supply houses that I would recommend for you. So first thing, go ahead and send off and get your taxidermy supply magazines and supply catalogs, and in the meantime, like I say, be familiarizing yourself with the tapes, and by the time that you get your supply catalogs in, you will know pretty much the process and what it's about, how to order your mannequins and so forth. Anytime you're getting ready to mount anything, I would recommend that you go ahead and tag your specimen so you'll know who it belongs to, not only your skin but your antlers, because if you wind up doing very many, it's very easy, as you'll find out, to possibly maybe get them mixed up. Consequently, your customer won't be too thrilled. So you want to remember to do that. The next thing that we'll want to do is make the measurements on your deer. And the first measurement that we'll want to make is virtually only 3 is necessary for our game mount. And that's the measurement from your eye to the tip of the nose, and from the tip of the nose to the back of the skull, and then around the neck area. So that's what we'll do at this time. So we'll measure from the corner of the eye to the tip of the nose, and this one measures about 7.5. Then you have your measurement from the back of the head to the tip of the nose, and this one's going to run about 14.5. And then we're going to make a measurement around the neck. And this looks like about 19. Most times when you're ordering a form, I would recommend that you would get a form that's just a wee bit smaller than your actual measurement. For instance, this one measured 19 in the neck. I'd say get a 18 and a half. It measured 7.5 to 7 3/4 nose. I'd recommend about a 7-inch form. So try to get, say, 7 inches from eye to nose and 18 inches around the neck, and basically your head will work in there. I would never recommend on ordering a form that is too large. You can maybe stretch an inch, but 9 times out of 10 you're not going to have enough flexibility in your skin around your eye, and it's not going to wind up looking like you want it to. So I would always recommend going a little bit smaller than bigger anytime. So you want to remember that. Always mention to your customer when he comes in, when looking your specimen over, try to make sure that you have enough cape for a shoulder mount, and if you don't have enough cape, tell him, and maybe you have to make a neck mount or a stubby mount or whatever. But if you got any bullet holes or shot out areas that's going to have to be patched, bring this to his attention, and you may want to charge extra for patching or whatever. And always try to determine whether or not your customer would want a right turn or a left turn, or just simply a straight mount. Oftentimes, if you give them a left turn and without asking them, maybe when they get home they hang it up, they just got one place that they can hang it, and consequently the animal will wind up looking into a wall instead of out into the open room. So you want to make sure that you do these things first. Okay, we're going to go ahead and bring the camera into the skinning area, and then we'll begin our skinning work. Basically all we'll need at this time is, this is what I use now, is a single edge industrial type razor blade. You can get them at most hardware stores, and I think some of the taxidermy catalogs that I've given you addresses on sell these in a bulk package of 100. And we'll go ahead now and make our first incisions and openings. Just start right behind the antler, and we're going to make a V. We're going to bring it down about right here on our first cut, and then we'll start right behind this antler and bring it down to this point, and then we'll make a longer incision here. So our number one incision we'll make right behind our first right antler, stopping the point. We'll pick up on our second cut and bring it on down. We'll make our next incision here. Okay, we'll just lift up our skin so we can see where we skint to, and go ahead and open up our incision. On each of our antlers. Bring it on down. Go ahead and open up, bring your V open. Anytime you're skinning, make sure that you stay close to the cape and into the meaty area. The skin will virtually just break away. Just begin to pare around the antler. Just lay your blade right next to the antler. Just pare around it, breaking away your other membrane at the same time. Go ahead over on this side, begin to break it away, and then it just, as you can see, just peels forward. Take your time and just don't be afraid of it. Being very careful to keep your fingers out of the way, because it's very easy to be working close like this, trying to hold the skin out of your way so that you can see and nick one of your fingers, if not your hand. Okay, go ahead and open up our neck area. It's like I say, just peel the skin back, hold it with your finger, and cut right in the membrane area. Stay close to the meaty area. You don't want to be cutting up too high like this on your hide, or the next thing you know you'll have cut through on it. So just pull and cut, pull and cut. When you get up to your ear area, which is right here, you want to be careful and not cut too far in front on your cartilage. Okay, we'll go ahead and, since we're this far open, and get this cape away from the antler on this left ear. so that we can fold the skin back out of the way. Okay. Okay. All right, on this left side, we're ready to cut our ear off this meaty area, the skull. I suggest to cut it just right behind the antler line. And that'll make sure that you haven't cut too far. Just go ahead and cut right on into it, folding the meat out of your way so you can see where you're cutting. Just break your ear down. Cut right through that white cartilage. Then you'll begin to see right here the opening. Just go ahead and cut right on into it. Keep moving. Go ahead and get the rest of this cape around this antler loosened, because in just a very few minutes we'll be ready to go right into the eye area. In my opinion, I guess the eye area is the most delicate area on any specimen that you'll be working on. You want to be very careful when you get to the eye. Let's get all this meaty area off the cape. Keep pushing and pulling it. Keep your sharp blade handy, because a dull blade's not going to do anything for you but slow you down. So occasionally you'll want to change blades. It doesn't take long for one of these blades to dull down on you when you're working around, especially around an antler area and cutting close to it. You wear one out real fast. Then just move over and grab your cape on your right side. And work him down. Just break it on down. We try to refrain, if we can, from cutting the cape all the way open in the back, because that's something that you're just going to have to sew up. Sometimes you can't help but have to do it according to how your specimen was brought in, condition and so forth it was in. Sometimes we'll determine whether or not you can do that. It won't take a real long time to skin one out. And the more you do, the faster it goes, but I'm purposely just going to go along at a slow pace so that it'll be relatively easy for you to see what's going on. Okay, I'll go ahead and break the skin loose from around this antler. So we'll have that out of the way. Just stay very close to your antler, right up around the hairline. It shouldn't give you any problem outside of just possibly dulling down your blade. And two, you don't have to use a single edge razor blade like I'm doing. This is just what I happen to have learned on, and I feel comfortable with it. If you want to use your trusty hunting skinning knife, you can, but when you get into some of these smaller, tighter areas, your hunting knife's just not going to do the job for you when you get around the eye and so forth. And you'll see how fast one will dull down on you. Okay, we can go ahead and line up with this ear here behind the antler and just break it down just like we did the other one. There's our opened area. cut on past it. Just break him on down. I'm going to move the camera here after a bit so that when we get on this face that you can see everything that's going on. Go ahead and work on this neck a little more. Break him on down here on the sides, just like at the back. Peel the skull a little further on up. Okay, you can basically see all that we've done was made our 3 main cuts in our V, skint forward, and then broke down each ear. Very simple. As you can see now, how I paired around this antler. Just broke it on down. We're just peeling cape forward. Okay. When you begin to skin for the first time, I would recommend that this may sound a little bit gruesome, but just take your finger and use it as a guide. Just stick it in the eye. And when you fold that skin back, you can move that skin with your finger and know right where that eye is, because this eye, folks, happens to be a very critical point. It's very thin, and if you do cut through this area, it's very hard to conceal it. So let's try to do a nice, neat job. It's very easy, really. Stick your finger in there and begin to break it down. You can feel this bony area, this white area right here. That's right where your eye is located. And just pare around that. I want to try to pull this skin down a little bit more so you can see a little easier. Okay, here we go. Just cut right into this bony area, right behind it. Don't cut in front of it. Cut right where the bony area is. Just cut into it. Then you can see that finger. Just wiggle your finger. Being careful, of course, not to cut it, but you know you're right on that eye. Just cut right into that membrane. Continuing to move your cape forward as you're cutting. And then just take your finger and pull it back out of the way now. There you go. All the time you're cutting around this eye, just make sure you keep it pulled out of the way. One critical point, which is right here, right in that tear duct, it happens to be very close to the bone. It just grows very close to the bone, and you'll have to stay right on the bone as you're cutting around that tear duct. Just take your time. Okay, we're off of it. You can see right here. This little area here. There we go. Just keep pulling forward. Go ahead and start working on the face area. Being careful not to cut through. Stay right on the bone. See, there's not too much blood and guts involved here. A lot of the ladies probably thought taxidermy was a real bloody mess, but it's really not. And if you skin your specimen out with it semi-frozen, you're going to have even less blood than that moving around. And by the way, speaking of ladies, some of the best taxidermy work I've ever seen have been done by ladies, so don't be afraid, ladies, to get right in on it. just pick your specimen up, turn him over, do whatever you have to do. A lot of times I'll wind up with them in my lap. Go ahead and start on your other eye. Here we're down to this white bony area again. Just stay right on that bone. Just stick your finger right in there. You can see it moving around. And cut right in front of your finger there. See? And that'll let that membrane begin to break away. Like I say, keep that finger out of the way. You might need it later. Try to keep my hands and arms out of the way as much as I can so that the camera can kind of get a bird's eye view of what's going on here. Okay, we're right down to a tear duct on this side. Just like before, we want to stay at an angle right on the bone, just very easily, very slowly. Take all the time you need. There's no need to rush. Don't be afraid of it. Just get into it. I would recommend, though, that you wouldn't start a procedure like this on a valuable specimen or on a customer's. Have something to practice with. You can do this same little practice on a fox or squirrel, where virtually the face will work in the same way, and you can practice on a squirrel or something like that until you think that you're confident enough to start on your game heads. Just keep on working around the face and on the sides. Work right into that neck area. It's like breaking down and cutting an apple, taking the skin off of an apple. And I highly recommend, before you work on any specimen, is to go to the library or get in any of your sports magazines and find all the photographs, study all the natural light that you can. Being that you already have a video tape machine, I would go ahead and pick up programs like Wild Kingdom and so forth, and they have excellent materials that you can go back and study and just get as close to nature as you can. Okay, when you get down to the mouth area, again, we'll do the same thing, just like we did the eye. Just stick your finger right in that mouth. Bring it up around here. And this darkened purple area right here is the gum area. Is your gum. So that's where you want to make your cut. Just cut right into that. All right, and then once you get in there, you can see those teeth. Just stay right next to the teeth. Stay right on that bone, on that jawbone, and keep pulling this cake back out of the way. Work on this nose a little bit. I would highly recommend, though, that you don't have any real open cuts or scrapes on your hand when you're working with something like this, and that you would possibly go ahead and get your tetanus shots brought up to date, because you never know when you're going to cut yourself fooling with something like this. easy to do, and I've done it plenty of times. We all have, if we'd admit it. Okay, I'm going to flip them around here and kind of work on this other side a little bit. Okay, same procedure here. This purple area is coming up. Again, that's your lip section. And it too is a critical area. So we just stick our finger up in there and cut right in front of that finger. Get our opening, and then we can stick our thumb in there and work it open. Cut on down. So I say being careful about those fingers. I think I'm going to get me another blade here. I believe I've just about got the goodie out of that one. Just keep on breaking it down. Work right on down into this nostril area. You'll feel the cartilage come up when you get to your nose. And until you get a little more experience, I would cut back to here and just pick up a lot of cartilage. We can just clean that out later. But I could go a lot closer here, but I want to make sure that you don't cut into your specimen and ruin him. So we'll pick up a good bit of cartilage on this nostril cut. Just follow your line right on around your bone and jaw area. Just cut that skin off right next to the bone. Just about to get this top section loosened. There we go. You can see there what we've done. Okay, we'll go ahead and work on our, move his tongue out of the way. I don't know why that always happens, but anytime you see a dead deer, his tongue's hanging about 4 miles out in front. Just go ahead and pick up on the bottom. Stand right on the bone again. Just cutting right along the bone, holding the cape back out of the way. And before you know it, we'll have this part off. We can go ahead and back and work on this neck a little bit. Get into it. Trying to hold this thing so you can see I'm probably going to cut my finger off here. Just work on this bottom jaw now. Tell you, when you're working around these bones and all, it doesn't take long to dull one of these blades down. Just bring it down. Pare it on down. Go right into the throat. Keep pulling on it so that membrane, you can see the membrane real well. Well, that blade didn't last any time. I guess that's the quality of today, huh? Trying to get used to it. Okay, here we come. We're just coming on down the neck now. Going around the Be careful when you're moving your deer back and forth. You might poke one of these antlers in your eye. It can be done, believe me. Okay. Break him on down. Now all this blood here, this is what the customer brought in. This is where he cut his head off here. So that's just something you have to live with on that end. Turn him all around. Okay, that frees us. And that part. That's virtually what we got here. Next we'll go ahead and skin our ears out. I'm going to relocate this skull out of the way. Okay. Just turn your ears down. Just flip them forward. Get you a good blade and go to it. I just flip my hands up under it like that. Again, being careful that you don't cut through the skin. You'll begin to feel the cartilage area and all. Once you get him broken down, you'll know where to cut. Turn him around. Break him on down. No big deal. Hard part's already over. You're going downhill now. See what we're doing now. Keep a little tension on it so that you can keep cutting it just on the membrane. Once you get him down to this position, take right in the middle of the back of the ear, cut you just a little tunnel area that you can just about fit 2 fingers in and make a little pocket. What you're going to do is take your ear splitters. You can buy these at from Van Dyke's and most any taxidermy supply houses, and just fit these down into there. What you're going to wind up doing is just separating and breaking that skin loose. So just put it up in that pocket. Just break it and slide it forward. Break it, slide it forward. This ear is very tight, and this skin, believe me, grows right on the cartilage. Carry it all the way up to the tip. Being very careful to try and not break through these edges, because when you're putting pressure in here, if you're not real careful, you'll break right through the sides. And it's something that happens probably pretty often until you get the knack of it. And then it'll happen on occasion. But it's all you got to do is take your trusty staple gun and staple it back together. Okay, once you got it broken all the way down, I usually use 2 pair. This is a pair that's sold and made by Jonas brothers in Denver, Colorado. And you can see that they're a lot wider on the end, so when I put a lot of pressure inside the ear, these points here can cut through and puncture an area. So these blunt ends, and they're a little bit wider, not as apt to go through. I'll do the final work with them. You want to work all the way to the ends. Get it separated all the way to the end. Sometimes your openers will take care of all of it, and again, sometimes it just don't want to do it, and you'll have to go in and do a little bit of skinning from the inside in certain areas. A lot of times I'll swap back and forth from one to the other and virtually work it out. Turn the ear wrong side out now. See what we've done. We've got a little bit of membrane hanging on here, so we'll just loosen that on up. Just flip it on out. Anywhere you see this membrane hanging on, just go ahead and break it down. Being careful. Stick your fingers up under your skin there, and you can feel the end of the ear so you won't cut too far and cut right through it. Do this on both sides. You don't necessarily have to have these ear openers. You can do what I'm doing right here virtually with just your trusty old razor blade and a little bit more time. But it does seem to give you a little more speed to use these ear openers. It does me anyway. I don't know, some people may be able to do it faster without one. I see a lot of people that when you go to these taxidermy seminars, they'll surprise you, believe me. And go ahead and cut the meaty area off. Just pick it up with your fingers. Just cut it off. Right up to the cartilage. It's a big wad of meat there you're not going to need anymore. If you got a hound dog, you might like to have some of that, I don't know. Okay. Get a little more of that meat hanging in there. Okie dokie. Turn him back right side out. And we'll be doing, of course, we won't do it right now to save tape and time. We'll do the same thing, of course, to the other ear. Then we'll go back, turn our cape wrong side out. Like I say, be sure you didn't have your good clothes on. Sometimes when a hunter brings you the cape, he'll have hunks of meat like this left on it. And you just have to work all the way around it and get it off in the same fashion as we've done before. Just pick it up and plane it off. If you leave these little hunks of meat on it, consequently when you mount it, it's going to be, when that skin hardens down to that form, it's going to leave little knots sticking out all over it. So it's not going to look very good. So I want to get all the excess meat off now before you go to another step. Just go all the way around your cape, turning it over and over. I'm looking for these little patches. There's another little bit. Let's get it all now. They have something on the market right now that if you can afford one, if you're going to be doing enough game heads and so forth to warrant the extra expense, they make a fleshing machine that does what I'm doing right now. Very nice job, very quickly. Super job. I'm showing you how without one. We don't want to get into any big expense. So we'll see we want to. Okay, you're going to have holes like this in it, buckshot holes, so forth. You can just take your thread, and what I'm meaning by thread is twine with wax on it. You can get it at a lot of the hardware stores, or you can order this cape thread through your catalogs. Just virtually sew it up. Okay. After we've done that, we can take our skin and turn it right side out again and put it in the sink. Wash it down real good. If it needs to, put a little bit of liquid dish detergent in it. Soak it down. I'll get all the blood out. Basically, cold water will do it 9 times out of 10. Get it good and clean. Let it drain. Roll it up in newspaper. Get most of the moisture out of it and put your cape away until your form comes. When your form comes, we'll pick it up from there. So usually it takes a week, maybe a week for a form to come. And when we get our form, we'll go ahead and I'll show you how to prepare your form for the mounting process. There will be some hand work that needs to be done on your form. So this time we'll end out the skinning end of it and we'll pick back up with our form. Okay, at this time we're going to spend a very few minutes giving a little instruction on how to prepare your mannequin or form for the mounting process. When your form arrives, the slots in the mouth and in the nose area are closed and you're going to have to open them. Also, you'll need to deepen your tear duct areas. And so we need to get this mouth open and the nostrils open so that we can fit the skin down into these slots for tacking or nailing. And about the best way to do that is to have you a Dremel Tool. If you don't have one, I recommend you to get one. You can't do this with a knife, but it's a little on the messy side, but this does a very nice, neat job. You stick your Dremel Tool up in the mouth area. Let it go for about a half inch, 3/4 inch. And just pull around it. Edge it on around it. Make sure you got it good and open. You're going to do the same thing with the tear duct. Just lay it in there. Just make it a little deeper so that your duct will lay in there properly. Then we'll come to the nose. We'll open this nose up a little bit so that you'll have some place to cut the skin. make it a little larger. A little larger. That's all we're doing. Of course, you can take and smooth off your rough edges where your form has been joined, so it'll be nice and smooth, and your skin will lay down evenly. And that's basically about all there is to it. We get ready now to put the antlers on it. You want to make sure that you go ahead and pre-drill your couple of holes. On an average size set of antlers, 2 holes, 2 good screws should hold it. If you got a larger set, you can go and put either 3 or 4 in if you like. But usually 2 will hold it, in the back, 1 in the front and 1 in the back. Go ahead and smooth your base skull down so it will sit evenly onto your form. In other words, you don't want it sitting high on one side or the other. And make sure when you line up your skull, you line it up, the center of the skull with the center of your form. In other words, you don't want it sitting too far off to one side or the other. Then once you find your center point, you can take your 2 wood screws and screw them into position on your form. And once you get it down, you can look at it again and make sure of your alignment. I'm just going to put 1 screw in right now. And we'll talk about that alignment again. Make sure that you do have it lined up properly. Okay, this is the center line that we were speaking of. Make sure that you align it properly with the form all the way down. Then insert both your screws, tighten it down good, and we'll be filling the side areas in later with our mache. We got a lot of meaty area in and around these lips and nostril area. This big meaty area right here runs right down into the lip area right on the edge. And you can see we got a lot of cartilage here in this nostril. It has to be cut out and opened. So we'll pare around this whole area with our razor blade. Being careful again with these blades, because when you're working close like that, it is possible to cut yourself. So we'll just start toward the end in this meaty area, and what we're going to try to do is cut underneath it and roll it forward right to the edge of the lip. And you want to be careful, like I say again, with a new blade, because you can cut right through your cape. What we're doing is cutting and pushing forward. Just kind of rolling it. You can see how this is going forward now. Go ahead and catch one of these large meaty areas. And again, we want to get as close to the cape as possible without cutting through and damaging our skin. Just keep rolling and cutting it. I'm just rolling it and pulling with my thumb, as you see. And we'll continue traveling all the way around the lip, the nostril area. As I said before, getting as much of this meaty area as possible. We don't want anything spoiling on us or leaving a lump of meat. Something that will cause a lump or a bump underneath the mannequin later. Something that will be virtually impossible to correct once we get around to the nostril area, you can see where the cartilage is here. I just start right underneath that cartilage, doing the same thing as here, just cutting and rolling it forward. I hope that little heater won't cause too much noise because it is cold today. And our fingers felt like we needed a little extra heat. I believe you can see now what we're trying to accomplish here. We just had this huge hunk of meat and have just broken it down, rolled it forward. And we'll do this all the way around. Okay, as you see now, I've gone all the way around our lip, nostril area, and just cut this meat back all the way. Here's our lip edge, and here's what we've done for it. All this excess meaty area. And now we're going to go into the nostril and cut this cartilage out of it. Usually what I'll do is split the cartilage. When you're in a delicate area like this, it is good, to use a little duller blade because it's a delicate area. You need something that you can put a little pressure on if you feel like you need to without going through the whole skin. You can see what I'm doing now. I'm just working around this one nostril here. Rolling the meat forward. So I can cut the excess off. It's a little bit hard to do with the camera, but maybe we can see what's happening here. Okay, that's one half of the cartilage area we've cut out of the nose that we certainly don't need. Now we'll work on the other side. Virtually the same thing. Pick up the cartilage with your blade and roll it forward. Same thing as before. Just getting rid of the excess meat we don't need. In fact, we don't need any meat. All we're wanting to wind up with is a good clean skin. Okay, once we've got everything good and clean, we want to cut this excess off. And we want to cut up within about an eighth of an inch of the actual lip line. So we can cut all this other out. We won't need it for tucking or anything else. It doesn't take a lot of meat for tucking. Just using the very edge of your lip. And we'll do the other side. The next thing we'll need to do is to insert our ear liners into our ears. Once you've ordered your ear liners, whether they're plastic, paper, or whatever, next thing we'll need to do is to insert our ear liners into our ears. Once you've ordered your ear liners, whether they're plastic, paper, or whatever, just simply insert them. Now this ear liner here, of course, is one for a moose. I'm just using it to show you what it looks like. All the ear liners has a muscle tone basically built into them. They come in, like I say, in a clear plastic or in a paper form, or you can make your own up. But then you just simply insert them into your ear, and then you're ready to go on to the pre-punching, what I call a pre-punching, so that you won't have to stuff a needle through so many holes. All you need is all this is a leather punch, and what we'll do is just simply punch all the way around the open edges of the cape. And what this does, it just makes it a lot easier, and to me it seems to be faster to pre-punch a cape so that the needle is ready to go right through the hole than it is to, while you're mounting, to stand there and try to push and tug and wind up maybe sticking a needle through your finger. It is a lot easier if you got it pre-punched. So that's what we'll do with our, we'll just go all the way around the open edges. And once we get through this pre-punching, it doesn't take very long to do it. We'll be ready to put on our dry preservative, and boy, we're going to be ready to mount a deer here just very shortly. We'll put that cape on that form, get our fittings. You can see how it looks now. Alright, now we're ready to apply dry preservative. Simply turn the skin wrong side out, the fleshy side showing. Re-examine and see if you have any meaty areas that maybe in your haste of skinning that you need to go ahead and skin off. If you see any bullet holes or any repair work needs doing, now's the time to do that. And once you get everything ready, simply take your dry preservative, just sprinkle it on. It's very easily done, just like you were applying flour. And then start to rub it in. This will absorb also a lot of the moisture that remains in the cape. And just apply it as you need it. You may need to use a mask at this time because, as you can see, this is very fine and travels in the air, and it could cause you some kind of congestion problem. So to avoid that, if you like, you could wear a mask, and as you're applying it, you simply rotate it till you get it all covered. I usually start on one end and work toward the other. Work into the facial area. Making sure that you get it covered in every spot. Don't leave anything undone. Anything that's not covered will possibly spoil on you and cause problems. So let's make sure that we do a nice job of covering it. up in this face area. Rubbing it in good. Don't worry about wasting a little bit of this stuff because it's not that expensive. It can be expensive though, replacing a cape that wasn't properly covered. Sometimes it's rather hard to explain to a customer what happened. And this can be a little bit messy, so you want to make sure you're not in the kitchen when you're doing this. After your skin is totally covered with the dry preservative, it does become more pliable and easier to work with. And you've got a good hour or so before you may run into problems with stiffness or something. Many of the taxidermy supply houses, by the way, carry this dry preservative, so it'll be up to you to what you want to use. It's all basically the same stuff. It just comes under different names. You'll find that maybe one is a little bit finer grain than the other. That's basically all you'll see in the difference of preservative. And double check it, make sure that it's all covered. Inside of your ears, on the edges, make sure that it's covered well. And you can shake out the excess. And basically that covers it. Next we'll be bringing in our deer form again, and we'll pre-fit this before we get ready to sew it and tack it into position. Okay, at this time, since we've cleaned our mess up, we'll go ahead and we've already mixed up our mache that we'll be using. This is a regular set mache, by the way. We don't want a fast or retarded mache. This just is a regular set right here. It gives you plenty of time to work with it. And we mixed up a little powdered glue with water that we'll be using to put onto the mannequin to help skin adhere to the form. We'll go ahead and start to do that right now. Just take it and just rub it on, especially in real delicate areas like around the eyes, in the nose, mouth area. All the facial area you want to cover real well to make sure that the skin is not going to pull away from the form itself. There will be some moving of the skin, but this will help keep it to a minimum. I recommend it highly. This again is a product that can be bought at any of the supply houses. Turn your form around here a little bit so you can get it into the lip area. work it into the throat area, around the brisket area to help it hold. You can put it on the whole form, but generally I don't use it on the whole form. I just use it in the areas that I feel like I need it the most. And that's something that you'll have to make a decision on also. Clean our hands off here a little bit so we can start to apply our paper mache. We'll just turn the form around now. Okay. The paper mache we'll use directly in the facial area also. Put a little muscle back in where it was taken out. Once you get the skin on this, it'll taxi around and move, and you can work it and move this mache as you need it, and where you need it. We'll put some in the nose area. Okay, I'll just about cover that end of it. Okay, we put on a little extra protection here, and got our cape ready. So we'll just see how this gentleman is going to fit. Turn it back wrong side out again, right side out, that is. We just slide him on, just like a glove. As you have noticed, I'm sure by now, that I've taken the antlers out of position so that we can get the cape on. This is about as easy a way as you'll see done, I'm sure. Okay, let's turn it around now. See if we can get a little more slide on the front. Turned up right. That's basically just about what you normally see right there. I'm going to flip him, tack him a little bit right here on the head so the skin won't slide down. Well, they're a staple gun. You don't have to have one, but they're nice. Tack hammer will do just as well. Do a little tacking here on the back just to kind of hold it in place. So when I turn it upside down and start working on the mouth area, we won't lose the skin. Okay, as far as the tacking goes, you can use virtually any little tool you want to, the flat end that will fit down in the lip area that we've slide it out. I'm using a fish skinning knife, you can see there, but anything like that'll work. Usually I'll put the upper end on first, and then I'll work from the top. Try to position my nostril fairly straight so I'll know where my starting point is. Just simply tuck that in real tight all the way up. I'm going to use an air staple gun here. Like I say, this is something that's up to you. It's a very nice, neat tool, but you don't have to have it. Makes the job a little faster and a little smoother. Okay. Then we'll take our air staple gun. We'll just see if I can get out of the way of the camera here. Just walk around and take it on the edge and just tack it right into position. Just walk it all around. We're still going to leave a little room, because a little tucking room, because naturally we've got to do our bottom lip. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Make sure we've got it mashed down real good. Do this front. Okay, that takes care of the front end of it. We'll just take a fitting here, pull this cape back out of the way. It's a little bit wrinkled. Excess cape up there anyway. All right, then we'll just bring our lower lip, take a fitting here and see what we need to do. Find our proper placement. Be the same routine again. Take our trusty little knife, work it right into position. When we end up, we want a little drop here in this corner of this mouth, so we want to leave room for that to come about. We'll go ahead and tack it. Get out of your way here. As much as I can, that is. This does a super job. Little air staple gun. Several of the supply companies sell these. Different name brands. They're all good products. And in the essence of time and tape, I'll do the other side and flip it up, and then we'll do the nostrils together. Okay, as far as our nose is concerned, we just take the skin, and remembering now that we got paper mache inside this slot here, just take our little paddle and push that nose into position. Making sure again too that we want to make that little curvature motion there, like a natural nose fits. So once we get that built in, we'll do our other side the same way. Then take our trusty old air staple gun and shoot that gentleman right into position. Okay, that gives us our nostril indenture there. Okay, now we've replaced our antlers, and we'll just take a quick fitting here. Looks like everything's going to go back into place all right. We'll lay our ears back on this one. The customer wanted them laid back so that they'll show off his antlers a little better. I don't blame him. So we'll go ahead and get our thread now ready, and we'll start stitching him up. What we'll do is bring our paper mache around and build up this muscle area that's missing, fill in around the gaps, around his whole skull, till we get a good smooth base that we're working with, just like the original deer head, of course. Build him up. Let's go all the way around it. By the way, you want your mache, you don't want it too watery, you want it just tacky. Sort of just about like bread dough, if you've ever made bread before, homemade bread. If you hadn't, you have to ask somebody. Unless you have a Vitamix. Okay, well, got that taken care of now. Just slide our skin up. It's going to do real nice. Take our needle, hoping, like I say, hoping we can find our pre-punched holes. Ah, it's our lucky day. Sometimes you'll have to pre-punch your pre-punched holes. I always leave my hole puncher out so that I can get to it if I need to punch a hole that possibly I've missed or I need in a position that I didn't start out with. Okay, sometimes you might on the first pull here, sometimes I'll use a pair of pliers, especially if I didn't have a hole punched like this one that I need. Because these needles, these surgical needles, they will cut you. Because they're razor sharp all the way down. So consequently, if I pull that thing, it just opened the end of my finger up. So you want to be real careful with your needle work. I'm trying to stay out of the way of the camera so you can see how I'm beginning to join this together. Remember, we cut a V here, and what I'm doing is join it together on this side, and I join it together on the other side. I'm going to put some mache in this ear to build up the muscle in it that was removed too, so that we can get it built back the way it should be. Okay. Having a little bit of difficulty here finding a pre-punched hole. So, we'll just make another one or two. Okay. Pull them together real tight. And make sure as you pull them that you're still going to have enough elasticity in the eye area that you got plenty of room to work with your eye. Sometimes I'll draw it up and then I'll throw a tack in it to hold it so that it won't be falling back out of position. Okay. I'm going to look for another hole. And just keep going like this until we get one side sewn up. And then we'll just go to the other side. Okay, now you can see where we've joined the two sides together in the V, sewn them together. And we're ready now to put the muscle back into these ears so that they'll lay in a proper position. And we'll just take a couple of balls of our paper mache. Just fit it right underneath the cape. Push it forward till it fits into the ear butt. And then just mash it around until the ear gets in a natural position. Now we'll do the same thing on both sides, and then we'll sew this part of the cape up. We'll have this effect, in other words, with the cape sewn up. Now that we have totally closed up our back incisions, our V areas on both sides, join them together here, and sewn down in, and totally sewn up our back incision. And it's just going down to this far. You remember when we first talked, starting off when we were skinning the deer out, we didn't want to go all the way down the back. We'd have all that to sew up and all that to conceal. So now we're just down to this portion right here, so we're going to have a nice looking back when we get through here, once we get it all smoothed in. And that's basically all there is as far as closing it up. We'll want to, of course, pull our excess skin back here and cut it off and tack it in the back. And I have gone in and driven heavy wires into the ears to hold them into position, as you can see here. That's just for drying. Once they're dried, all this will come out, all the extra tacks and stuff. But the next thing we want to do is to start working on our eyes. I'm going to move the deer and put it on another stand so that you can get a better view of the eye work. Okay, now that we've got our cape sewn up, so forth, pull back, tack down, all the excess cut off that we don't need. By the way, we want to make sure when we are bringing the neck and skin over the form, we want to make sure that the white patch underneath the chin remains right in the center of the deer itself. We don't want it off to one side or the other. We want to make sure that the brisket is in the proper position. If it's crooked, you'll be able to tell it. Make sure you got everything centered up. And now we come to the eyes and the ears. That's one of the main features of a mount. Most anybody after a while can learn to put a skin on a mannequin and basically line it up like it should be. But when it comes to eyes and ears, there comes the personality or the actual character of the mount itself. You want to make sure that your ears are laying in the proper area, whether they're forward, backwards, or turned, or whatever. This comes with photographs and, again, studying wildlife itself in the wild when you can, or going to a zoo, or, like I say, since you got a video camera and recorder or whatever, watch for Wild Kingdom and related programs. The eyes, again, is very delicate, as we said before, and we're going to take our time on this and try to do close-ups so that you can see exactly what is going on. Usually what I start out with, again, we're using regular set mache. I try to use 2 balls of mache that I'll be inserting, one in each eye. I may use the whole ball and I may not, but I'd like to try to start off using the same size balls in each eye so that I can keep them balanced, one with the other. Usually, as far as the eyes goes, a 27 to 29 millimeter will fit most deer, unless you've got a real small deer. But usually I'll go with 27, 28 millimeter. This is a large, nice trophy-sized deer, weighs about 195 pounds. I believe the fellow said before he was field dressed. So to me, that's a trophy in anybody's book. But 27, 28 millimeter eye will be fine for it. I do recommend convex, concave eyes, or museum eye, whatever you want to call it, with a natural blue gland inserted for more realism, naturalness. Okay, the first thing I usually try to do is put a little bit of the mache up in the tear duct area to build that muscle in. And then I'll put a little roll up underneath the eyebrow itself to build in a little muscle tone. Not much, it won't take much. And the same thing on the bottom. Use about the same amount. Tack it down in the lower eye. I want to get it so it'll move. Once you get the eye inserted, you'll be able to work it. Take a few little pieces and put in the front of the eye, because that's the corner we're going to have to work with once we get the eye inserted. And I'll take some of the rest of it and pack all around inside the eye itself. Trying to make it as level and as even as I can. Remember, you don't want the eyes to bug. They're going to have to be kind of deep set. Of course, the skin is now puffy, and the eyes, of course, and the nose and everything else will look a little puffy for a while. Then I'll take what's remained and I'll put that right in the back of the eye itself. Remember the alignment now of your blue glint. You'll want to keep it right in line with the eye itself. You don't want it looking this way or that way. Try to keep it straight with the corner of the eye. We want to try to make this eye look something into like a 45-degree angle. A deer's eye doesn't look straight out this way, or it doesn't look straight forward, but it kind of looks at a 45-degree angle, so that's the effect we're going to try to do. And you can see this very expensive tool that I have here. It's just a nail that I've bent down and ground down. You can use basically anything to make this work. It's kind of like trying to put a tire on a rim situation. Get all your skin around your eye. You want to get that eye cocked just right. And then once we get it cocked like we want it, then I usually just take my thumb and push it. Excuse my head for a moment. And make sure that we have it just right. And then we push it in a position. Then we'll take our skin again and begin to work with it. See what we've got. You might want to shift it just a little more. Just a little back. Okay, then we'll pull and work this eye and see what we're going to have. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, let's work on this tear duct first and get it placed like we want it. These little tools here you see me using, I have a friend who's a dentist, and when he gets his goodie out of his tools, he usually gives them to me, and I can use them for all sorts of things. I'll tell you what, taxidermy is a business that happens to be very close to the dental business, believe it or not. We'll work in a little muscle tone now underneath this eye, so it looks like it belongs. Let your eye drop at the back a little bit. Okay, we'll take our trusty little staple gun again and go ahead and tack down this tear duct. Don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay. Just play with it. It's something you have to experiment with. The eyes are never the same really on any specimen. Excuse my head again. I'll have to look in here and kind of get a balance. See what I'm working with. It's hard to do this without being in the way of the camera. I'll see where I want to do my tacking work. And do it from the side and be out of the way. We don't want that staple to go deep. Just we're just tacking it, just holding it in position till it has a chance to begin to dry. Or try to keep our hairs lined up. You want to mount it a little bit so the eyes look like they're a little bit sleepy. Because once it dries, it's going to be some drawdown. Okay. Okay, this is basically the look that we're trying to get here. I hope that the film is going to show it up like I want it to, so that at least you can kind of tell what's going on with tight balance and the way the eye is looking, like in this direction instead of straight ahead or out this way. We just barely got her tacked, and of course all during the next couple of weeks we'll be watching the drying of this deer, the eyes especially in the mouth and the nostril area, to make sure there's no pulling away. We might want to make an adjustment each day, and as the skin begins to dry, like I say, we will be mounting it a little bit sleepy. So that's why it's looking a little on the droopy side, but that's kind of what we have to go for. Now we'll put in our other eye, and the trick here is trying to get a proper balance between the two. Same type situation. We got our ball of mache, and we'll go to work just like before. Go down into the front of the tear duct. Put a little muscle in that area, and the whole front of the eye, as a matter of fact, like we did before. Stand is a little bit on the wobbly side, but maybe we can live with it. Okay. I'm going to put that roll on this eye just like before. Let's work it down in that little pocket. Okay. Take a little more. Put a roll on the top of it. Want this little roll of mache now to go all the way around the eye where his muscle cone goes. And by the way, I've never seen a perfect set of eyes as far as balance. You try to get a happy medium and get as good as you can get, of course. But don't be discouraged, and a lot of times I'll lay a set of eyes and look at them, pull them back out, and lay them again. Maybe think I've got them just right, come back tomorrow, and it still doesn't suit me, and you wind up yanking them again. And I have put them in several times, trying to get just the look that you're after, and that's the way you acquire it. Just it's like the old grade school teacher used to tell us, do it over till you get it right. So that's about as close as you can come to an explanation of doing eyes. Okay. We'll take our last little bit here, lay it in the back of the eye again. Okay. Try that 45-degree angle again. Where's my tire iron? Now we use this. Like I say, anything will work. Just get it underneath there. Okay. We'll get that pupil looking the proper angle again. I'll have to get you away just for a second. Okay, we'll go ahead and knock this tear duct down. Get that out of the way. Okay. Go ahead and work on the front of this eye now. Get some of this mache mashed down. Don't look too puffy. Like I say, if you don't have a pair staple gun, then a lot of times I'll use pins. Sometimes it's better because the staple seems to be too powerful at times. You just want to tack it into position so it starts drying. These little hairs. Have to play with it, keep pushing it, pulling it, till you get what you think you're looking for. Like I say, tomorrow, that might not have been what you wanted. I'm working with this other eye also at the same time now, trying to get a believable balance. Does that sound realistic? Believable? Who's going to believe it? Okay. Like I say, get your photographs out. Study them over real good. In fact, have it with you while you're mounting it. Okay, we're getting in the ballpark here. Getting these two eyes kind of together. This one's showing a little more eye than the other one. What do about it here? Okay, push this back a little bit. Like I say, you can come back in an hour or two, and after you looked at something for so long, you just, it's hard for you to see something that's wrong. But you can come back in an hour or two and look at it and make a slight adjustment, and keep doing that for next few hours, and you'll get them about where you want them. And tomorrow, after they started drying, you still have time to make an adjustment, maybe for the next couple of days. And but it's real crucial for at least a couple of days, so that you can make adjustments if need be. One of the first things that I like to do before I start putting any wax finish around the eyes is get a damp cloth and clean up any of the paper mache that sometimes it hardens and wants to lay on the eyeball. You've had a little shrinkage, so you're going to have a little of this. So you want to go ahead and get your eye cleaned up and ready for your wax. Like I said, this wax, you can take it and just cut a little slice off and just roll it up in your finger. And the heat of your hand will work it in the position it needs to be. And you can take, now this only, if you only use this wax if you've had a little pull away around your eye. In other words, if your eye lid is not touching the glass eye, you'll want to fill that space in. And this is what you can do it with. Now this is just something that I do. You may find something better. Just push it into position. Yep, we'll drop that one. Let's get us another piece. The color itself, like I said before, is very close. We'll just push and work down. Push it into the creases. Cut any excess off that's not needed. Cut it away. Just keep pushing and poking it into the areas, into the slotted area where there may be some pull away of skin away from the glass eye. And we'll use this procedure on both our eyes. And once we get the wax all the way around it like we want it, then you can take lacquer thinner, spray a little bit right on the eye itself, or you can put a little bit on your finger and rub it onto the waxed area. And that will soften the wax and help it to form fit into this area. It makes it a lot smoother. You go, like I say, you go all the way around the eye. And the same thing on the other eye. And once we get both eyes done, we'll be ready to do a little airbrush work. But we'll go ahead and do our nose and mouth work at this time. And then we'll come back and do all our airbrush work at one time. Oftentimes you'll, say in the nose area, you'll try to be working with the wax and get it into a particular crook or cranny that you can't get your tool into, or push it in with your fingers, or do real tight, close work. You can take your hair dryer and hold it over the waxed area for say a minute or so, according to how hot you have your dryer turned, and it will begin to melt the wax, and then the wax will just flow into that area. Mouth work, like I said before, will be just the same routine. We'll make sure that we've got all of our staples pulled out of the way and we're ready to do our finish work. We'll make sure that we have any hairs, if we have any hairs turned into the lip area, to pull them back out of the way, like I said before. Pull them into the position that they're to go in. We'll just cut off another sliver of our wax and roll it right into that position. Just mash it in with your finger. And you can take your tool and blend it. And cut it just like a regular lip. All the way around it. Once we go around the mouth, we're going to be ready to do a little airbrush work. People, we're going to be finished with a deer mount here. Making sure, again, that we pull all our staples, checking on the back of the seam, and if there's been any separation there, of course, we can take our wax and lay it into the seam, and then work the hair right into the wax area, and it does a real nice job. Of course, you can do this with basically any kind of paints, oil paints, whatever. I'm using a lacquer paint that I use on with a lot of my fish work. It gives a kind of a semi-gloss appearance, which will blend well with your eye area. And again, like we're doing, all we're doing is blending. We're just lightly airbrushing this area. We're going to be getting some on the glass eye itself, but we'll be coming back with our lacquer thinner and cutting this away. We'll do our nostril area. Like I say again, you don't necessarily have to have an airbrush, but I've always used one, and I recommend that anybody that's going to do any amount of taxidermy work to get an airbrush. Make sure we give a good coat on this nose so to have a wet look. Again, what we're doing is just blending the we're just blending our wax. You want to make sure that you got your airbrush turned down low enough that you're not going to throw a lot of paint in there, because it doesn't take but just a very small amount to do your blending work. The airbrush too is good if you have any scarred areas or anything around the facial area to blend in a darkened area. It does a very good job. Also catch our nose, inside our nostril. Now we'll do our cleanup work. Would be the only thing that would remain, and that's just simply putting a little lacquer thinner on a cloth and cleaning off any surface where you don't want your paint. It does a real nice job. Whether if it's gotten on the hair or too much on the skin, it does a real super job. Do that on all your eyes, the nose, and around the mouth. Once your cleanup work is finished, basically I would say go over the whole deer, checking him out, making sure all the hair is in place where it should be, around the eyes and so forth. And basically the only thing left to do with it now is to put it on a panel if your customer requires it. If not, she's ready to hang on the wall. I definitely have enjoyed working with you.